Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bom. May I have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita? Thank you everyone for taking the time to come to this gathering. It's a age-old tradition for devotees to get together to hear and chant. You notice that the Bhagavatam is set at Naimisharanya, where the sages are sitting together. Thank you so much. The sages are sitting together and discussing the topics of the Absolute Truth. Vasudeva Kata Prashna Purushams Trin Punatihi. Purushams Trin Punatihi. Three types of people. Purushams Trin Punatihi get purified. Bhaktaram Vrachakam Shrotrims Tatpada Salilamyata. Just as the three types of people are the people who are listening, the person who's speaking, and everybody else in between. So I'm sure your neighbors appreciate it on a Easter Sunday, having a rousing kirtan for what for most people is early morning, the early morning hours. So they have some kind of bhakti unmukhi sukriti that carried over to be situated in your vicinity. And in the discussion of Krishna, in the association of devotees, Krishna becomes pleased. This is mentioned in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which one of the Yogendras mentions that Krishna notices what we're listening to, what we're giving our attention to, just as much as we notice what our friends, family are listening to or paying attention to, especially if it's about us, then we notice doubly. And Krishna, when he sees that somebody's paying attention, trying to understand him, trying to listen to topics about him, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Sadyo hridya virudyate tra kritibi sushrushabhi stakshana. He actually feels obligated. Actually, he's interested in hearing that too. And he stays in the heart of someone. Sadyo hridya virudyate tra kritibi. For somebody who's kritibi, their life is refined and they're used to listening to Bhagavatam, then sadyo, right at once, Krishna becomes arrested within the heart of that devotee, won't leave the heart. So this is a spiritual technique, actually, to anywhere sit down with anybody, especially, not anybody, but those who are interested in the spiritual topics, and to hear and discuss. And Prabhupada says this in the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that just as scientists get together and they have discussion and they talk about their recent scientific researches, and then they compare notes, sometimes debate. So similarly, spiritualists they do the same thing. Now, Prabhupada set up a perfect forum for us. That is, he gave us the topics in his books. There are unlimited topics for discussion. There are many books. You can go to Loy Bazaar. Anybody been to Loy Bazaar? You can go to Loy Bazaar, and there are booksellers there where you can find millions of books. I heard Carl Sagan in a short video clip talking about how many books you could possibly read in one lifetime if you were alacritus and you really leaned into it. He said, but it's not how many books you read, it's which books you read that make a difference. And out of all the books in the world, the Srila Prabhupada's books are rare and special. And that, of course, the books themselves, the original subject matter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is summarized in the Nectar of Devotion, are all of vital interest to Vaishnavas. But then his commentaries, hearing directly from Srila Prabhupada is especially important. So my observation is that it would be practically impossible to complete all of Srila Prabhupada's books and the discussion of all the different subjects within his books in one short lifetime. Oftentimes people think about moving on. Oh, have you read the Kurma Purana or this literature or that literature? Of course, these are also important. They're within the Vaishnava canon. What's also important to ask, though, how were they translated? What commentary is there? Because Rasa Bihari Lal, no offense, but he doesn't care what the translation is exactly or what the commentary is. He's not watching for that. He's watching for who buys more quantity of books. So we have to be careful ourselves and be refined in the way that we hear and chant. So what I'm saying is that if we make our primary source of hearing and chanting Srila Prabhupada's books, we'll be imbibing a very particular kind of vibration, and that is the vibration that came from Srila Prabhupada. And that's solid. And that's very helpful to have a solid core from hearing properly. If you hear eclectically, then you'll be a little eclectic yourself. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vyavasayatmika buddhira ekeha kurunandana, bahu shaka hyanantascha pureyo vyavasayinam. That those who are resolute in purpose, and they're very focused in their practice of spiritual life, are very successful. Whereas bahu shaka hyanantascha, if one becomes splayed in the way that one gives one's attention, and that can include not doing spiritual practice at all, but looking out into the varieties in the material world for entertainment. There's lots of different kinds of entertainment available. We drove by Sony Studios in Culver City, and I was aghast at how large it is. I know how much it costs to maintain a building, and they're maintaining a city. They have so much money, and it's coming from the production of fantasy movies and all kinds of narratives. They're not particularly edifying or even savory. They're somebody just making things up and saying, how much can we make off of this? Make it blow up bigger and make the cars go faster. So that's another kind of splayed attention. If I give my attention to all kinds of entertainment that has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, then obviously my mind's going to be like that also. And in the spiritual realm, there's lots of things we can hear. This is the statement at the beginning of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shrota Vyadini Rajendra, Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa, Apashyata Matmatatpam, Grihe Shu Griha Medinam. Of course, this verse describes how people have many subject matters to hear. Shrotra Vyadini means, he's saying, O king, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, so many things you can hear about in this world. Millions and millions of things you can hear about. Nrinam Santi Sahasrasaha. Apashyata Matmatatvam, but generally they're from people who don't have any spiritual vision. So if you listen to that, then you become jada buddhi. Your brain becomes dull. And you're not, as we described in the other verse, sadyo hridyavarudyate tra kritibi. Kriti means well done, refined. You become very sharp spiritually. You lose that sharpness when you allow yourself to just take anything in. So the culture of spiritual life is very simple, but it requires a little discipline. It's a yajna, especially the culture of hearing. So one of the ways, certain ways to make advancement in spiritual life is to regularly read Srila Prabhupada's books. For instance, Bhagavad Gita, it's very much overlooked. There are some people dedicated to the Gita, but you can count them on your hands and toes, generally. Dedicated means not just like, oh, I love the Bhagavad Gita, like, what's the 5th chapter about? I have no idea. I just know I like the idea of Bhagavad Gita. Or in India, oftentimes I've met people say, yes, I know Bhagavad Gita. I'd say, what is it? And he said, it says, do your work. Do your work. That's it. We should make a study of it because, as Ananda Murari Prabhu said after his graduation, I asked him, how was school? He said, my realization is, school is what you make of it. Education is what you make of it. And the Krishna consciousness movement isn't because you sign up for it, because you're in it, because you wear the same kind of clothes as other people in the movement, or even if you're initiated, it doesn't mean you're going to advance spiritually. It's what you make of it. And you have to do the austerity of, and it's a joyful austerity. As Krishna says in the Gita, he says himself, Rajavidya, Rajakuhyam, Pavitram idamuttamam, Pratyakshavagaman dhamyam, Susukam kartamagyam. It's joyfully performed. And so the hard work is, where's the book? Somebody go find it. And then you think, okay, maybe we should have the books available, really available. I mean, you might have Prabhupada's books, that's another way. Sometimes I notice that devotees will have books. If I go over and take one off the shelf and open it, I can tell I'm the first person who opened it. It makes a little cracking sound like, yep, I'm brand new. Nothing's been touched. I do notice that when there's flags and markers and the book is worn, then it's reflected in the whole household. It's reflected in the consciousness of the devotees that are in proximity of the books, because they're taking advantage. As Ananda Murari said, Prabhupada's books are it's how much you take advantage of them. He's here. He'll say, oh, I wish I was here when Prabhupada was here. First of all, maybe you don't. Because many of the personal servants of Prabhupada, many of whom I'm very close friends with, tell me that it's one of the hardest services you can possibly get. Because you try to keep up at that pace, and it's relentless. There's no break. And it's very trying. I mean, a lot of Prabhupada's servants came and went. We shouldn't be very sentimental. I wish I was there. I would just serve Prabhupada all day. Just do it now and see if you can handle it. Because It's not some sentimental thing. Prabhupada wasn't sentimental. He was doing practical service all day long. And he didn't suffer fools lightly or slackers. And so it was very hard to be around Prabhupada. Actually, being on the planet at the same time Prabhupada was there, I wouldn't say it was hard, but it was challenging because he always gave a fresh challenge. And there was no messing around. I mean, we just finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita marathon, Be a Gardener, and Rameshwar Prabhu and others had described how Prabhupada was adamant about finishing Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 months. That was a life-stopping event for hundreds of people. And that's how Prabhupada moved in the world. So you can say, oh, I wish I was there at that time. Be there now at this time by doing your part and take the trouble. Prabhupada took trouble. So what I like to say is, okay, maybe none of us can write books like Prabhupada. Whoever could. But at least we could try to read the books the way he wrote them. And Prabhupada would say, drops a day wear the stone away. And this is how I've written so many books. Because he said, every day I wrote, at least sometimes a few sentences, sometimes I would write a few pages or more. But he didn't sleep. He didn't sleep. He took rest in the late evening, and then he'd get up at midnight, maybe 2 hours. And then he'd start his translation work in the wee hours. And then in the morning time, he would go for his morning walk. He'd come and greet the deities, have a little prasadam. Sometimes he would take a short nap. He had to manage a movement. He couldn't afford to sleep. So we don't have to do that, but we do have to do our part to take advantage of what he left us. And we can have his association through studying his books. And it's the primal vibration of the Krishna consciousness movement. Hare Krishna mantra, the way he taught it to us, with Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. And then after that, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then he asked, read my books and chant 16 rounds and save yourself a lot of trouble by not dabbling with the sinful activities of the material world, because they will suck you in and drain your power, and you lose your spiritual integrity when you lose that. And so to be happy, you have to follow 4 regulative principles, have to chant at least 16 rounds. And in order to advance in spiritual life, you really do have to read Prabhupada's books. He says himself in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that my students don't read all of my books, and then he names them, that they will revert to eating, sleeping, and they'll fall down from spiritual life. So it's not a complex proposition, but it does take determination and some planning. You have to have a plan, actually. There was one very nice devotee the other night. We had a phone call. I think it was on Friday night, and she was expressing how interested she is in reading the Gita and the Bhagavatam. Said, but I get so far, and then there's a lapse I have. And then, I start over again, and I haven't gotten very far. And I said, you need a plan. If you're going to get healthy, right, you have to have a health plan. A plan to get healthy. If you want to develop wealth, what do you have to have? A wealth plan, financial plan. If you're going to learn to play an instrument, Ekachakra Pran's a musician, what do you have to have?
Practice regimen.
A practice regimen plan. And if you can't, you got to get yourself a can plan so that you can do it. So just like if you're going to learn the violin, if you don't practice at least half an hour a day, you're really not going to make any progress. Any violinists in here? Yes? How much do you have to practice every day to make advancement, would you say? So you don't embarrass yourself in front of your teacher the next time you meet him or her. How many minutes would you say? Half an hour. So same thing with Prabhupada's books. We should be advancing in reading them. So a little time, just like think of it like playing an instrument. Like if you don't, are you okay back there? Did you all fit?
Yeah, yes,
Okay. If you don't have a plan to read Prabhupada's books on a regular schedule every day, then a day can go by, a week can go by, a month can go by, a year can go by, a lifetime can go by. And there they were the whole time, but I just didn't take advantage of it. So I guess you could tell the theme of the first part of what I wanted to say, which is take the time. There's so many other things to do. And a devotee, especially a follower of Prabhupada, means make the time to read his books. Something every day, something. So that it's going in and you're feeling his presence and the mood of how he speaks things. Otherwise, you hear from many other places, sometimes people get it wrong. Things get passed around or other kinds of teachings come in, and how will you know the difference unless you're studying it and understanding for yourself. So one of the joyful ways of doing this is to pull out a book and then read it and have a discussion. So I'm going to read a little bit from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. As soon as I figure out where my glasses are. Hey, that'll help. It's a good start. Thank you. I just opened to 529. Does anybody know what that verse is? Off the top of your head? Nope, that's in the 7th chapter. Last verse of the 5th chapter. Very good. That's good. Correct. So know your way around the Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to learn it all in one day or 1 week, but start to know, where things are. Should know what the chapter names are. Go through the index. You know how much time it took the devotees to make this extended index? I mean, it's one of the most amazing index. We might take it for granted because we have the Veda base or something like that, but it actually helps your brain to look things up. That's why in classes all the time I say, look that up. Prabhupada used to do that always when he's giving a talk, say, find out that verse. He wanted the devotees to run and find the verse and keep looking it up. Education doesn't necessarily mean you know everything, but you know how to look it up at least. That's helpful. Bhoktaram jagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati Bhoktaram, the beneficiary, yajna, of sacrifices, tapasam, and penances and austerities, sarvaloka, of all planets and the demigods thereof, Mahaishvaram, the Supreme Lord, Suhridam, the benefactor, Sarva, of all, Bhutanam, the living entities, Gyatva, thus knowing, Mam, me, Lord Krishna. Shantim, relief from material pangs. Richati, one achieves. Translation, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Again, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. What did the first sentence say? What?
All the living entities are looking for peace in the material world.
Do you concur? The first sentence said? I'll read it again. Listen carefully. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. So what did it say?
They're all anxious.
Who's anxious?
Conditioned souls.
And what are they doing? The clutches. What does that mean, clutches? Like a hawk grabs onto a prey. Clutches. I'll read it again. It's poetical. Prabhupada's writings are poetical. They're beautiful. One sentence you could live on for the rest of the month, the year. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. But they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. So where does that take us right now? These first two lines.
Frames the problem and then it's leading us to a solution.
Frames the problems and it leads us to a solution. That should really catch our attention, because among the conditioned souls who are in the clutches of material nature, trying to find peace, and then Prabhupada uses the word formula. Isn't it nice when we have some problem, someone comes to your door, knock, 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 yeah, I got the formula right here. You just take this and problem solved. People do it a lot. I see advertisements all the time. People say, you're too fat, you're too thin, you know, blood pressure's too high. I've got the formula. I'll give it to you. So formulas are there, and that means, you know, it comes neatly packaged. It's already put together. You can take it. The greatest peace formula is simply this. Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Somebody look up beneficiary. What is a beneficiary? Does anybody know?
The person who gets benefit.
The person who gets benefit. So here it is. The greatest peace formula is simply this. Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Can anybody decode that? Lord Krishna is what's the definition of beneficiary? Ty goes the runner.
A person who derives advantage from something, especially a trust, will, or life insurance policy.
I could barely hear you. Could you read it out a little
A
louder?
person who derives advantage from something, especially a trust, will, or life insurance policy.
Okay. And you just tell me what this means now. Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Who can say what that means? How is Lord Krishna the beneficiary in all human activities? Yes.
So no matter what anyone does, Krishna is the one who receives the benefit in the end.
Correct. It's all meant for him. So when you have a trust, okay, we have a few Vaishnavas sitting in the sun over there.
Voluntarily.
You like the sun, huh?
Yes.
That's why you moved here.
That's why we moved.
Good to see you. What was I just saying?
Trust, but
Yes, a
beneficiary.
trust. In a legal institution called a trust, there is a beneficiary. It has to be named. You have a trust specifically so you can have a beneficiary and that receives the benefit of the trust. And that's what that legal implement does. It gives benefit to somebody. So this is another way of looking at our lives, and that is that everything that we do is meant for Krishna. It's meant to serve Krishna. So the beginning, can you hear me way back there? Okay. In the beginning of spiritual life, Krishna says that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, you should do it as an offering to me. And so if we're organizing our lives around this principle that Krishna is to receive the fruit of whatever I'm doing, I'm offering it to Krishna, it's for his benefit, then we're legally aligned with the trust and with the beneficiary of the trust. Continuing. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord because he is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6-7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishvaranam Paraman Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be the lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This 5th chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute Truth, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes in contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial towards anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control the senses in every respect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage, or Brahma Nirvana. The Eightfold Yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being, is the highest perfection of life. That one purport is so perfectly articulated. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada perfectly articulates the way that anybody can become aligned in Krishna consciousness. So the information is available, and unless we hear it regularly and go deeply within it and apply it, then there's no real progress in spiritual life. We only have the external trappings. The danger in that is that if I don't get the experience and I don't feel progress in spiritual life, then I'll start to think that it's imaginary. When we hear about the fifth offense in chanting Hare Krishna, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna, the glories of chanting Hare Krishna, or the glories of the holy name, to be imaginary, this offense comes about by lingering too long without actually making advancement. And after some time, this attitude, which I've seen frequently, devotees can develop, which is, well, I'm not really making advancement. And probably others aren't either, because they're probably just faking it or something. Those Mangal Arti going, 16-round chanting, all hyphenated words. Who do they think they are? And without the actual experience of Krishna, then we're forced to take shelter of Maya. We have to take shelter of the variety of the material world, which then comes into family, friendship, and love, and the sentimentality of misplaced sentimentality that Arjuna was chastised for at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, when he became so overwhelmed that, oh, but what about my family? And Krishna says, kill him. And someone reads the Gita and says, what is this book about? It's about something beyond Maya, beyond the material world. Don't be sentimental. Misplace your sentiments. You have to cut the connection with the material world. And the only way to do that really is by practicing diligently and really hearing. We have to hear from Srila Prabhupada's books. So now let's take some reflections or questions. Yes?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So the music analogy which you talked about, the violin.
The music analogy about the violin.
So what I
Practice.
felt was, when I was learning music, it was all about the interest,
When he was learning music, it was all about the interest.
Yes, so if you like it, then the time really doesn't matter. You can practice for
If
the
you
whole
like
night.
it, then the time doesn't matter. You can practice all night.
Yeah. So maybe it's about more, the plan is important, but I feel we need to develop a inherent liking for that.
The plan is important, but he feels we need to develop a liking for it. Yeah, so I appreciate what you said. This is something Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, is that until we have a higher taste, we don't really have absorption enough to give up the lower tastes of the material world because we're habituated to them. However, your suggestion that we get the taste before we have the plan is maybe out of sequence, because isn't it true that in order to get a taste, sometimes you have to do the discipline of following the plan? For instance, the example that Rupa Goswami gives in the Upadeshamrita says when you have a disease, then you have to take the cure, whether you like it or not. And whether you see that you're getting cured or not in the beginning, you have to have faith in the plan. So the doctor gives the plan, says, look, here's what you've got. You're going to have it for 11 days. You take this medicine, on the 11th day you'll get better. So that's a plan. In the beginning, I don't have relief, and I'm not feeling the happiness of feeling better, but I still follow the plan, and then I feel better. He says, keep taking it even though you don't, the medicine might not even taste good. In fact, the example he gives is sugar cane, when you're sick with jaundice, tastes terrible, but you still have to take it. So your point is valid. I've just made a slight adjustment that in the beginning, when we're practicing, we have to do it whether we like it or don't like it. We have to use our intelligence. So this is something Krishna says at the end of the 3rd chapter of the Gita. Evam buddhipaham buddva samstabhyatmanamatmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kama rupam durasadam. You have to use your buddhi in the beginning, before you even have taste. The intelligence has to be fortified enough so that you have an adult in the room. When the senses and the mind want to do some stupid stuff, which will really get you more implicated in the material world and waylay your progress, the adult in the room, the intelligence, steps in and says, no, you have to do this, because the intelligence is able to show us causality. Without that, in Rajas and Tamas, there's no sense of causality. I'm only absorbed in the minute, like an animal. Animals don't understand causality very well. Or I put it this way, to the degree that we become advanced in consciousness, to that degree we understand causality. That's why the most advanced can understand that there's a cause of all causes. You can trace it all the way back and say, yes, my father had a father and mother, they had father and mother. It goes all the way back, so there must be a supreme cause, Father. With a little cat, you can take a little paper bird and put it on a string, on a stick, and then you can put it in front of the cat. Have you ever done this? You come on, kitty. And the kitty all day long will chase around the house and never looks up and goes, hey man, what are you doing with that stick? You're doing this. Monkey is a little more advanced. Once when I was on the roof of the Goshala, I was staying there, and I came out one morning, or I was coming back in for taking my bath, and there was a big bull monkey up there on the lanai. It's not called the lanai, that's Hawaii. What do they call it? On the veranda. And so then, it's dangerous. And I've seen the chokidars scaring away the monkeys, They go, ha, ha, a stick. And so I just pretended like I picked up a stone from the ground. And I went like this, and nothing came out. And then he looked at my hand, and then he looked at my eyes and looked at my hand, and then he was like, okay, I got you. He's smart. They know what's going on. Cat may not figure it out because its brain is a lot smaller. The primates, they're a lot closer. They understand. And human beings, the more advanced they become, they understand. Like something causes something else. And so when we have that intelligence, that's it. Intelligence, not taste, but it's intelligence to understand, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. So, evam buddhi param buddha samstabhyatmanamatmana. Jahi shatru mahabaho. He's to stand up and fight armed with very strong intelligence at first, so you can work your plan. and keep doing it. Because if you're smart, you know, if you plant good seeds in the right way, if you follow the YouTube video, and you know how, you know the guy, he's planted award-winning tomatoes, and you just say, okay, I'm going to follow this guy. He knows how to plant tomatoes. This is where you get the seeds. This is how you germinate them. This is how you plant it. This is the kind of soil. And you do it anyway. You don't get tomatoes right away, but you have a very clear idea that you're going to get good tomatoes eventually because you're following the process. So in Vaidhi Bhakti, we have to use our intelligence based on our faith in the source of the information. So we have to have clear idea that this scripture is infallible. It's coming from a higher source. It's more intelligent than I am, that's for sure. What a mistake to think like I know better. And this is going down into the lower modes of nature. Okay, let's have a few more. Yes. And then yes.
I like the point you made, Maharaj, that spiritual integrity is compromised
He liked the point about how spiritual integrity is compromised
when the attention is diverted.
when the attention is diverted. Yeah, that's true. Because if we do the austerity of keeping our attention on our spiritual practice, then we know we're good for it. And if we don't, then there's a kind of weakness and a sense that I've been diverting my attention here, there, and everywhere, not really being faithful to Krishna's instruction to think of him, manmana bhava madbhakto. So to the degree that we can do that, the more we'll feel that integrity and spiritual strength. Nice. Did you have your hand up, Prevashti? Yes.
Your point about the gardener and making a plan
Gardeners and making plans.
reminded me of 434 of seeking the spiritual master who knows the truth and can impart that.
So she's relating to what Krishna says in the Gita 434, seeking a spiritual master who knows the truth.
And they can then teach you the way so you can follow that plan.
And then they can teach you the way, and you can follow that plan whether it tastes good or not.
In the beginning.
Then eventually you can learn, yes. So that's one of the processes, of course, in any discipline. You go to somebody who knows what they're doing. They already have skin in the game. It's uncanny, actually, if you go to a teacher who already did the austerities, sat and listened, showed up for practice, worked their fingers to the bone on the violin and so forth. When you sit with that person, then you really download that vibration that comes from them. And you also hear the details, do it like this, not like that. So in the Gita, tadvidi pranipatina pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. The tradition of spiritual practice coming from the Bhagavad Gita is the same, and that you should approach somebody who's been there. They're mature spiritually. They've been through different eras in their life and practiced spiritual life steadily through them, and they've learned the lessons. And they've actually realized something. From that, if you take instruction from such a person, you're going to feel confident. In fact, I find it's one of the most important aspects of learning is confidence. I see it in book distribution as an example. Oftentimes, devotees don't want to go on book distribution because they're not confident they can do it. That's the main reason. They think what's going to happen? And maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm an exception. Everybody but me, but I can't do it. But if you come and watch somebody do it, like, hey, it could be done. I see it can happen. This is how it could happen. That is emboldening. You want to actually do it then because you think, oh, I think I could do it too. So there are many advantages for having a spiritual master, to have somebody who's been through many different trials and also has imbibed the information and practiced it. And then it's kind of like a sea captain who's been across the ocean a few times. How do you like it? You got on a 747. It's like, welcome. You're on with, John Peterson. It's his first flight. And, you're kind of like, okay, all right. You're a little more confident. Somebody, some old guy comes out. It's like he was in the military. He flew planes. Then he flew for United for the last 35 years, And it's like, you feel confident. So the spirit of it also is that we should approach the teacher with a kind of openness. So he says, we should inquire. Inquiry is not very easy because, first of all, I already know everything. That's a big problem. I don't want to hear, because partly the reason I don't want to hear is because I want to do it my way. I don't want anybody to tell me the way to do it. That's the disease of the material nature, is I think by my independence I'm going to be happy. And therefore, I actually don't want to hear what a spiritual teacher says, because then I might have to follow it. Because you get a letter and I look, there's no question marks in this letter. Because that's safe. Don't ask any questions because you might get an answer you don't like. So Krishna says, be ready to ask questions. And when you get the answer, follow it. And if you can't follow it right away, take it in your heart that somehow or other I'm going to come up to speed on this. That's sincerity. That's what sincerity means. Otherwise, don't bother unless you're ready for that. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And you should go in a humble mood. Prabhupada again and again quotes how Sanatana Goswami approached Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, who am I? He said, I'm a fool. Here was somebody who knew 7, 8 languages perfectly, who ran a whole government, who came from a Brahmin family, knew Srimad Bhagavatam backwards and forwards. And then he sat down with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said, I don't know anything. I'm a complete fool. And he said, the proof of it is people call me Pandit and I believe them. I just take it in. And he says, yeah, I'm learned. So I don't know anything. I don't even know who I am. That's where I'm starting from, with a complete deficit. So unless we start from such a deficit, thinking that I don't know anything, I don't know what to do or how to conduct myself, then how can we learn? We already know. I know that. I already know that. I'm good. I'm okay. So he said render service also, because when you render service, then your heart opens up, and so does the heart of the person you're serving. And there's a tradition of this, of serving the teacher, and then when you do, there's this reciprocity where the teacher is inclined to actually teach confidential knowledge. If somebody's very puffed up or they're not actually following what you say, then it's like, why? The teacher's going to feel like, why should I say anything to this person? They're not going to follow it anyway, and it actually becomes an offense. So those who are interested in spiritual life, they find a teacher they can trust, and then they ask questions, they do service, and they submissively try to follow the instruction. And again, I may not have the wherewithal to do it immediately, but at least I should take it into my heart that I'm going to consider this. Try to do the best I can with what I have right now and try. Okay, a couple more.
So
1, 2.
the best way to serve Srila Prabhupada is to read books, Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yes. One of the most important ways to serve Srila Prabhupada is to read his books. I'm a personal recipient of that instruction. I mean, we all are. But I sat there and had this revelation, because in San Francisco, when Prabhupada came, as you all have heard me say many times, I was ushered up to meet Prabhupada with a group of other devotees. And Prabhupada then heard from our temple president our book distribution scores. And Prabhupada's response was, you must also read my books. I've not written them just for selling. I've written them for you to read, become pure devotees, and go back to Godhead. He said it on numerous occasions, like, why am I taking so much trouble to write these books? So one of the ways we express our devotion for him is just open it and get on a plan and make sure that, you know, you have access to them on a regular basis. And it's very helpful, as I've said before, to try to finish them. Try to make a complete study of it. You'll notice the difference between devotees who have gone through all of Prabhupada's books and those who are around them. You know, you hear it here and there. Of course, Prabhupada said he set up this system of hearing Bhagavatam every day. You know, this be a sage page by page, 41 pages a day, you'll finish in a year. Well, Prabhupada said, okay, well, at least they hear one verse a day. And I think it's 50 years on that plan. But, you know, it might be a little bit interrupted because, you know, you take a break here, you take a break there, you're going to... I mean, isn't it a worthy goal to read all of Prabhupada's books if we're going to be in the game and follow? And it's not rocket science. There's a finite number of pages there, and where there's a will, there's a way to figure out how to go through them all, and hear them all, read them all, somehow. And if you want to start a Hare Krishna explosion in your neighborhood, then regularly pull out the books. Any place I know where devotees regularly reading, there's a Hare Krishna explosion. Where do you think it comes from? You know, it just doesn't happen out of space. And some people say, well, you have to be a pure devotee to make it happen. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. Only Prabhupada could do it. All the religions of the world say that. Allah was the last one. Only Jesus Christ. No. They're teaching so that you can teach other people. And you can make a Hare Krishna explosion. So I know, like when I go to LA, I always bring this little box. In fact, I carry it with me wherever I go, so I can make a little Hare Krishna explosion, like we're having here today. And during Rath Yatra, I always, after my service is done, I go sit in the garden. I pull out my little box, and next thing I know, there's devotees all over the place. And we're hearing from the Bhagavatam, or from Bhagavad Gita, or one of Prabhupada's books, or usually at the Laguna Festival, right after the prasadam, we'll sit out on the patio, pull out the little box. By the way, I'm selling these, so just kidding. And next thing you know, there's a ring of devotees, and there's a big difference between being at a festival. I mean, there's only so much you have to say when it's about, like, hey, where are you living nowadays? Hey, and like, you know, what's your diet? You're looking really good. That's a kind of kata you can get into. Even in Vrindavan, during Kartik, you know, devotees are there, everyone's together, and it's like, hey, you still doing that thing? Where do you live now? So who cares that much? That can be dispensed with in a few minutes, and then the difference between that and getting into a room where there's Bhagavatam going on, where you're reading Bhagavatam, you're hearing Bhagavatam, it's a different world. And that's what Bhagavatam says, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. If you want to transport yourself to a different world, you have to be serious about hearing, because that's where spiritual life starts from. Okay, Ekachakra Prana, and then we have Rati Rasa.
I really like the term, the culture of hearing.
The culture of hearing, he liked that term.
There's so many sounds out there. The Prabhupada's books are the perfect vibration.
So many sounds out there, but Prabhupada's books are the perfect vibration. I also said the primal vibration of ISKCON.
And if you read eclectically, then you start to think and act eclectically.
If you read eclectically, you'll start to act and think eclectically.
And it's very simple, but it does take a lot of discipline.
It's simple, but it takes a lot of discipline. Bass is simple, right? Playing the bass.
Oh, very simple.
But it takes a lot of discipline to learn how to play.
Yeah, simple but not easy to do it well over and over again.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And education must. Well, you get out of it what you put into it.
That's a Ananda Murari quote.
Yeah, like that.
I've quoted him 5 times in the last month because I was so struck when I asked him that. And it's like, yeah, I should get serious.
And then you talked about how Prabhupada was very practical and not sentimental. He gave challenges. There was no messing around. And if you want to enter into that mood now, you can do it here today by reading like he wrote those books.
Could you hear back there what he said? Of course, Prabhupada did have moments of levity. He'd joke. He'd give a gift to a child. He'd tell jokes sometimes. It's not that I'm not trying to paint this picture. It was like being around Prabhupada was terrible or something like that. But the sentiment that like, oh, if I was just there, then everything would be okay because I'd just be with Prabhupada. This is kind of a sentiment. Yeah.
And then the last thing I really appreciated was then we opened the book and then we experienced the culture of hearing. Apparently randomly you opened it. Was it random?
It was random, yeah.
We came to 529, Action in Krishna Consciousness, Karma Yoga, where the whole problem of life was described and the perfect formula was described to understand that Krishna is the best friend of all living beings, the owner of everything, and the beneficiary of all our actions. And then Prabhupada explained, no matter what you do, even other yoga systems such as Jnana Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, nothing will satisfy unless you understand this relationship. So then we experienced the power of just opening the book and reading it.
Yeah, I like this point about the beneficiary also because I'm a trustee in a trust, and when we have our meetings, we always have to consider the beneficiary by law. It's part of the bylaws of a trust. They say we can do this or we can't do that because we have to consider what the beneficiary will want. So similarly, if anybody asks you, can you do this or do that? And it's like, I don't know, I'll check. I have to check with the bylaws to check with my beneficiary if I can do this. We can run our lives like that. If some sense gratification comes as an offering to you and you say, it's outside the rules of the trust that I'm in. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm a trustee. When you get initiated, especially, you become a trustee. And you're bound to the rules of the trust. And the rules are that Krishna is the beneficiary. So he's like, yeah, I'd like to help you, but I can't. It would be violation of my fiduciary responsibilities. So I'm afraid I can't help you. Rati Rasa.
Prabhu kind of just mentioned it, but I was appreciating how you said that we can, whoever could write a book like Srila Prabhupada, but we could read them as he wrote them. And I just thought that was such a beautiful motivation that I'm going to bring with me into reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Especially sometimes if there's like a lack of motivation or like me mother is just doing it because I'm supposed to do it or something like that. It's such a beautiful motivation to keep reading and keep strong in it.
Nice. Thanks for reminding us of that point. And just to say it again, it's Prabhupada painstakingly wrote his books. So we may not be able to write books like that, but we can painstakingly read them. And that's a way to worship Prabhupada, to follow him. To actually follow him is to painstakingly read his books. So my humble request is make a plan and regularly read Prabhupada's books. And mainly read it not just for the information. I know Bhakti Shastri can be a little pedantic. However, it's also a system that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came up with and the Prabhupada endorsed as well. And so that's not out the purview of following the Acharya either. And it does keep your head in the books. And when I ask devotees to take Bhakti Shastri, I'd like you to know that I've also done it. And I also did the Bhakti Vaibhav, and I'm almost to the end of the Bhakti Vedanta studies also. And I have a busy schedule. And, somehow I figure out how to do it because it's important to me to keep moving in it. And so take advantage of the fact that you're human and you can decide how to reorganize your life in different ways. And it doesn't it doesn't have to be huge. Birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky's unlimited, so the amount you do isn't that important. But it's that you do it. You have some plan. That's what separates really serious devotees from those who are just, well, not, there's nothing just about devotees, but the devotees that are reading Prabhupada's books regularly, you'll notice the difference. And you'll notice the difference, more important, because you're getting Prabhupada's association. That's really what fortifies your intelligence, so that you're protected. You have the adult in the room all the time. You can hear that voice guiding you. It's so potent and powerful. And it's necessary, because getting out of the material world is not child's play. It actually requires a Herculean effort. We're not a club. I mean, we are a club, but we're a club that's, we're trying to do something that's impossible to do practically. So you need to have some lift to get out of this material world. Do we have a harmonium in here?
Yes.
We do? Could Madhuri Prabhu play it?
Yeah.
You could sit up here and play. Uh-oh. It's dry here. Is everyone okay? You want to stand up for a minute? Why don't you? Too much compression. If someone could pick up those song sheets, it's Shastra, so we don't want to have it on the ground. I was going to do it earlier, but I got carried away here. It's a morning song, and it's already almost noon. You just bring them up here. Somebody collect them and bring them. Never quite understood these covers. Have you? It's kind of an obstruction. That's right. If it fits perfectly, then it's...
It's a mood.
All you need is one little thread to drive you nuts. Krishna. Well, you don't have to stay standing if you don't want to, but you can if you want. So if you're going to stand, you can stand near the back. If you're going to sit, you can sit up close. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Welcome to the Hare Krishna movement. Bhagavad Gita, Hare Krishna mantra, little prasadam, a lot of prasadam. And anywhere people hear the holy name, associate with the holy name, then they'll get purified. Because Cheto Darpana Marjanam. When you hear Hare Krishna, you're hearing Krishna. Krishna's dancing there with us, and you can feel it. So Prabhupada went to a park, and he just chanted all day long, or for a few hours anyway. And then people heard it, and they go, that's not normal. That's something from this different world. And they know which world it is. That's where they're from. That's their home. So they hear home, and then they want to know more about it. How do I get closer to that vibration? And that's the essence of the practice. But you have to do it a lot, especially when there's so many distractions and everything, to become really strong. So organize your lives so that you always have the Hare Krishna. You always have to hear Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna. Chant yourself, japa, but more have kirtan also, and teach it to other people. And then read all of Prabhupada's books. Just make a plan. There's 100 days now between now and July 10th. 100 days. How many pages could you read in 100 days if you read, 1 page a day? You'd be a lot further along. You'd be a quarter way through the Bhagavad Gita in 100 days. So make sure you're on a plan. Otherwise, Maya's got a plan waiting for you. And it's going to cost a lot. And you're going to get ripped off at the end. So you go, ha, ha, ha. There wasn't anything really in it for you. It was for me, not for you. So don't get the wrong plan. And if you can't, get yourself a canned plan. So you can get back on track and do it. Are there any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
I just have a reflection from that kirtan.
Okay.
I really felt like we were transported back to Thompson Square Park.
Back to Thompson Square Park, right? Yeah, and that sometimes kirtans we can get, nothing wrong with melodies, but it can be more about the melody, or at least some of it is being driven by that. But if you do straight Hare Krishna, sometimes you get back to wow, it's the name that's lifting us. It's not It's not the musicians. It's not like you have to be a great kirtaniya or something like that. You can get a bongo. Prabhupada had a bongo drum. I mean, Krishna put Prabhupada in that situation to kind of show everybody that, like, it's the name. It's not. If he came over with a big kirtan party or something like that and said, here we are, and everyone would say, I can't do that. But if you can find a bongo, or I like that tambourine you had back there. Yeah, you get yourself a cowbell, whatever you need to get. Bong, bong, bong. And, you know, just do the mantra, then it's really powerful. Think Thompson Square Park. That's where it all happens. Any other things? Yes.
Guru Maharaj, you were mentioning, as I'm trying to improve my reading, that it was 2 months of intense period that everybody's life stopped to get the Chaitanya Charitamrita out. So if they could work so hard in 2 months and all we have to do is read, so I could do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so the kind of effort the devotees put into putting the Chaitanya Charitamrita together for 2 months, stopping their lives just for that, we could put a little effort into reading it, right? And also that Prabhupada, he was constantly on a schedule, writing. So we can be on a schedule to read, right? Couple more? Yes? Hare Krishna.
Is there like a preference with whether you use a book or use like pocket Vedas?
Book or pocket Vedas? No, it's okay. Either way. I personally, I'll use whatever I can get my hands on. When I'm traveling, a lot of times I use a pocket Veda. Because, you jump in the car on the plane, it's hard to lug around a lot of books. But I prefer paper books myself because there's a beginning and an end to it. The pocket Veda is just like go forever and ever and ever. And like, where was that again? I don't know. But I have a kind of memory that I work with space. I'll think, I know it was on the left side when I'm going back to look it up. And there's this sense that, okay, there's a cover on this side and that side. That's all I have. That's all I'm dealing with right now. So my mind doesn't get overwhelmed. Something about paper too, just the tactile sense, holding it and things like that. But it's all okay. Whatever way you can transfer the information and keep that vibration going, it's fine.
Isn't there also a preaching aspect when you have the book? Because people see, oh, you're reading there, I need to read too.
Yeah.
And the little kid in the house sees, if you're on your phone, they're like, oh, they're just on their phone. They might be looking at anything versus, oh, he's reading a book,
Yeah.
I see him reading books.
Books are special. They're beloved in human society. People love books because you have a knowledge shakti. And you look at a book and you go like, it's something in it for me, whatever book it is. Even if, people like to have libraries in their house because it makes them close to, like, there's knowledge, there's wisdom here. So books are especially powerful, yeah. Hare Krishna.
When we have a plan, like, how can we get the momentum, like, all the way? Like,
When you have a plan, how can you get, like, momentum and go all the way? Krishna says in the Gita that step by step. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, krame krame, one step at a time. So take whatever kind of, a little bit is better than nothing. So the mood that, unless I can do everything, or I can do it in a really grand way, or I'll wait till I can do it in a grand way, or I won't do it at all, is not effective. If you start with whatever you can do now, do it. And consistency is king. Because if you can stay consistent at a particular level, then gradually you'll get some momentum. Hare Krishna, Dhanamari.
My question is, you mentioned about Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav.
Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta.
So is it, do we have to take in a sequence, or we can take any after reading Bhagavad Gita and all this, or we can wait, or how do
Well, it starts with Bhakti Shastri. Once you finish that, Bhakti Shastri is, what is it? It's the Sri Upanishad Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita,
Nectar of Instruction. And then it goes to Bhagavatam in Bhakti Vaibhav, up to the 6th canto. And then Bhaktivedanta to the end of the 12th canto. And then Bhakti Sarvabhauma. No one's taken it yet. I don't think they even have a class.
Yeah.
And that's the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Should we read after we finish?
Well, when you're taking these tests, as I said, they're sort of sequenced, or I said they're pedantic. But there's a way in which they're, you have to finish Bhakti Shastri before you take Bhakti Vaibhav. But as far as your reading goes, you can really read from anywhere if you want to. It's nice to read the Sri Upanishad and some of the other books and get some foundational, and read the Bhagavad Gita, go into the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. But if you happen to pull off a Chaitanya Charitamrita and start reading that and get absorbed in it, it's not like you violated any rule. Prabhupada wasn't like that. He always said, these books are sweet no matter where you taste them, just like a sugar candy. You take it, it's sweet on any side. But as far as systematic study goes, you'll understand the other books more if you understand Gita and the Bhagavatam and so forth. And it's nice to go through them systematically because they were spoken systematically. Bhagavatam was. You're supposed to understand the first 9 cantos. So when you read the first 9 cantos, you're sort of done with the material world. You'll be done with the whole thing if you read it carefully and listen to it. Because you go like, it's already been done. That's what the Bhagavatam does for you. It takes you through every possible psychological condition that you could be in, every type of sense gratification, and shows you how you hit a brick wall at the end. And then instead of having to do it, then you kind of imbibe it. It's in your heart already. Like, okay, I'm not in the material world anymore. I don't want to be part of it. Then you can go into the 10th canto with a transcendental reference and understand Krishna's nature as being supreme. And then you can take full advantage of his pastimes. And then you get the 11th canto. You can really relish because the philosophy is so intricate and sweet. And if you can relish Bhagavatam, then this is Nigama kalpataror galitam palam shukamukharam rita drava samyutam. It's drava, it's like it's already pre-digested. It's for people who have a taste for it. It's like the best kind of intoxication you can imagine with no side effects. Or the best of side effects, which is, you drink it, you become fully intoxicated, you pass out, you get up, you drink more. I mean, that's what everybody wants, But they're doing it the wrong way. The Bhagavatam, we have to overcome the disease of attachment to material life. And if we can then get that kind of intoxication, it's really happy life. It's a life being with the Paramahamsas who know how to relish life. You got to practice at it a while because, you got to go through rehab. Do your rehab. Be responsible. Rehab yourself. And get stone cold sober and get into the culture of Bhagavatam. And once you're in that culture of Bhagavatam, you become a great soul. And associate with Bhagavats also. Find association with those who are not messing around in the material world, dabbling, thinking it's okay. Be in association with those who are very serious about spiritual life, and you'll enjoy like anything. If you can learn to love those people who are totally serious about spiritual life and absorbed, then you'll get some service too, and then you'll also feel happy by the sound vibration. Satam prasangam amavirya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata taj joshana rashu apavargavardhini shradaratir bhaktir anukramishati. Bhagavatam says step by step, actually it's Kapila Dev, step by step, anukramishati, you'll advance to the cherished higher levels of consciousness by being in the association of very focused, sincere devotees. Satam prasangam. It's a very good association. And you'll hear the vibration. So try for that. Oh, I thought it was forbidden in times of pandemic? Okay. All right. Nirkula, you want to say a few words? You can ask Nirkula to say a few words. If you'd like her to speak, you can say Haribol.
I was just appreciating all of you individually in my mind, noticing how far you've all come along, how nice it's been to get to know some of you more, and I look forward to getting to know all of you more. I'm appreciating your sincerity and your deep desire to go back home, back to Godhead in this life. That's what it's all about. And the time goes fast. I can tell you that now, being 65. And it seems like just the other day I was joining the temple. It goes really quickly, and your body starts to reminding you and showing signs that this isn't eternal. This life isn't eternal. So you're all very fortunate. We're all very fortunate. We've been given this opportunity to become part of the most illustrious sampradaya. We have the most illustrious acharyas, and we're all connected. And that's a rare, rare opportunity in this universe, in all the universes. And I'm proud of you all, and I'm inspired by all of you wanting to take that opportunity and do your very best and use all of your talents and all of your determination to spread this Krishna consciousness movement, and to share it with others. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and we're a family. We're a big ISKCON family, and then we're a small family within that family. And I'm here to help and serve you in any way. It is my great honor.
I have a question.
And I'm not. Take care of each other, okay? Friendships are very, very important in Krishna consciousness. We all go through difficult times, and to have each other to be able to lean on and to be able to count on, and without judgment, that's really important, without criticism. Just love each other, okay? Like siblings. That's what makes parents the most proud, right? When they see their kids getting along, when the parents see their children getting along and helping each other, it just makes your heart swell. And I see that with you, and I'm very, very much appreciative. Thank you.
What's it like to write a cookbook?
I was given that service of doing the recipes for the first Higher Taste with my dear friend and god sister Bhadra. And actually, Rameshwar Prabhu approached her to do the recipes for that. And she and I were doing a little catering, and she very kindly offered to have me help that. So that's the other thing about your connections with your friends and your god siblings. They can expand your service. That's where it comes from. And she very kindly brought me in to that service. And the Higher Taste was published at a time when it made a lot of money for the BBT. And so I felt very fortunate for that. And she and I, we had apartments right across from each other on Vaisesika Avenue, and she and I would experiment. And the hardest part was putting measurements, because especially Bhadra, she's a fantastic cook, and she just, well, you must know, Tulya Bhakti, right? When you're a cook and you just do it, and all of you who cook, you just do it. You don't know the recipes, you don't know the teaspoons, the cups, and this and that. So that was took some doing, but it was great fun because I was doing it with her, and it was for Srila Prabhupada's BBT. So, Hare Krishna.
Haribo! Thank you very much.
So now we're going to do Padaseva, and Prabhu will also give out cookies per Javan.
If I have a handy wipe, I'll use that.
Yeah.
Hungry guns.
Thank you.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.